having us along. I know we had a chat a while ago, and you'd had some feedback from parents that were kind of concerned around energy drinks, and what we looked at some people that could potentially deliver this. I work for Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership, and I'm in a really small team that's the public health improvement team. So there's about 6 of us. And we actually sit in a broader team called Strategy and Transformation. So my kind of main role is looking at opportunities around improving health, and engaging with communities and trying to make more community-led projects as well. So yeah, so what I worked with, we had an RGU student in, we have an annual pilgrimage, I guess, to the partnership from RGU students. And he very kindly sort of helped pull this presentation together. Unfortunately, it was a bit too late for him to help deliver it. I also had one of our, we have career ready sort of mentors that come in. So they've had a little bit of input as well. So we've actually had a little bit of a young person's kind of support with delivering, with creating this presentation. So without further ado, I think energy drinks, what's the harm? You know, they've been around for quite a few years now, and data-wise, we reckon that 1 in 3 young boys, young people, particularly boys, say that they regularly consume energy drinks within the kind of UK, and that's kind of consuming more than their peers in other countries. There seems to be kind of trends for quests for fitness, performance, and there seems to be also quite strong marketing strategies around energy drinks. So I just want to go into what we're going to cover today. Um, we're going to just talk about what energy drinks are. I thought there was maybe going to be a few more people, so I'm hoping you guys are going to be able to use the chat box and just tell me a little bit in the next slide about what you believe or what types of energy drinks you know about. What do energy drinks contain? We're going to look at why people use energy drinks, what the potential impact is, and what can we do to support the healthier choices around that, that make more informed decisions around use of energy drinks. Okay, so let's test the chat box out here. Can any of you pop some names of energy drinks that you know of in the chat box? I'll just give you a little bit of about a minute there if you want to pop some in. You're not limited to one if you know a few, but feel free. Yeah, Monster.
That was the first one that I thought of.
Yeah, Monster, Red Bull. Okay, Red Bull Monster. These are the quite prevalent ones. I think you see a lot of advertising around those ones. Monster Red Bull, Prime, well done. Yeah, yeah. Supermarket generics, they've been sort of replicating them. Yeah. Okie doke. So yeah, there are loads. You know, Prime seemed to be a couple of years ago the kind of newbie on the block. And we'll kind of talk about that in a bit of a further on slide. But yeah, Red Bull, Monster, there's I mean Lucozade Energy, you know, you've got the original Lucozade, but you've got the ones where they're energy where they are adding things like well, caffeine to them. Rockstar, Tenzing, we've got Sneaky and what's it, Energy Purple Storm, loads of kind of enticing names. I did wonder whether I should also kind of make you aware of some of the alcohol-based ones that are coming through. We have partners like Street Sport. I know that people that work with the kind of youth forums have been highlighting that they know that it's not just the standard sort of energy drinks that you take for refreshment, but the alcohol-based ones are getting quite popular for young people in the evenings. And those, if you're interested, are things called Dragon Soup. There's ones called Liquid Death. There's some that are called Buzz Balls. They're quite new coming through. Hooch has even got in on it and started putting caffeine in it, and even WKD have started putting caffeine into their drinks to make them more like the olden days when Red Bull came on the scene and we were drinking things like Red Bull and vodka. So those are sort of things to look out for if your young people are kind of out and about in the evening and with their friends and stuff. So energy drinks. So they're defined as a soft drink, take away the alcohol one, but they are defined as a soft drink that have got higher levels of caffeine. I mean, some of the drinks, like, your Coke, things like that, have got natural levels in them anyway. But the energy drinks are these drinks that have got those heightened levels of caffeine in them. And those ones tend to also have that kind of warning on. So if they've got over 150 milligrams per litre, then they should legally have a warning on them. What is caffeine? Caffeine is the most commonly used drug in the world. We all kind of forget about it. It's a little bit of a Cinderella drug, I think, along with nicotine. I think when people tend to worry about their children and young people, it's more about your kind of harder drugs, your amphetamines, cocaine, things like that. Caffeine, nicotine, both still stimulants though, and they can be that kind of link into sort of behaviors that young people could end up being risk taken and actually going on to sort of further different types of drugs to get the buzz. Refined sugar, it plays quite highly in a lot of energy drinks. You do get the diet versions, but refined sugar in this country, our Cokes and all that, there has been a sugar tax put on, remember, but refined sugar is probably one of the highest kind of products that is kind of impacting on our health. It's also one of a quick hit sort of thing as well. You know that when you have a high sugar blast, then that's when you kind of get that buzz. That mixed with the caffeine really gives you that kind of heightened boost and a feeling of like focus and a bit of a buzz. They also talk about taurine in some of the energy drinks. And that's actually an essential amino acid that is actually produced by the body. There's not really much evidence around what taurine actually brings to the table when it comes to energy drinks, but it's one of those things where energy drinks, whichever ones you're going for, they're actually kind of usually got extra herbs, or some of them are starting to talk about nootropics now, to give that kind of extra mental stimulation that you were kind of promised with things like Red Bull, giving you wings. Okay. Right. With energy drinks, the legal status currently is there isn't really any law restricting the sale at the moment. What you'll find with energy drinks is you'll have supermarkets or retailers who have made the decision to put a restriction on them. So it's not actually an enforceable law around the energy drinks. So anybody over the age of 16, usually supermarkets would challenge somebody using the challenge 25, which is that sort of guidance around if you don't look over 25, they really need to question and ask for ID. But with regards to the energy drink situation, they would be looking at asking for identification if they didn't think you were 16 or above. I know that there has been talks about Labour government recently who are looking at consulting on making a ban on sales to under 16-year-olds for energy drinks. Energy drinks, they've kind of been around for a long, long time. I think you could probably unofficially call energy drinks even back to the Roman empires. They used to create this stuff called Posca. But it's all about hydration and trying to keep people focused. But the first modern energy drink was actually made in Japan in 1962. It was something called Liptovatan D, which was marketed as a medicinal tonic to help combat fatigue. And what that contained was vitamin B complex vitamins, caffeine, and taurine. the original sort of one that I think would have come into everybody's point of vision was back in the 1990s in the UK when Red Bull arrived. I think that was the original one that probably everybody can resonate with. It was launched in 1993, but it was actually sold in Austria, way back in 1987. So it was about for a few years before we got it here in the UK. Energy drinks as well are
Sorry, Rachel, we're still looking at slide 4.
yes, no, I'm still
No,
on
that's
that.
okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yep. So energy drinks as well are also kind of they're kind of seen around the fitness industry. When I was doing a little bit of research for this, the original question I think was around energy drinks, and there was also things like creatine and pre-workout, and parents wanted to know a bit more about that. We decided to just keep this as energy drinks, but looking at the fitness industry, there has been kind of suggestions that things like your energy drinks are taken maybe an hour before a workout or something like that to help with the actual performance and function. So there's kind of lots of messages and there's lots of different lanes of thought around energy drinks in the UK. Um, and I'm going to go on to my next slide now. Look. So what do we know about this caffeine? So we know that there's a small recommended amount for children and young people, so that's children under the age of 12. And it's about 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of weight. So if you've got a 30 kilogram weight 10-year-old, they shouldn't really be having any more than 90 milligrams of caffeine in a day. With adults, you're up to about 400 milligrams per day. And then you're unlikely to see any adverse side effects for a healthy adult with that. You're about half that if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. I guess the thing with caffeine intakes, though, is it actually is found in quite a lot of foods. I mean, you would have to be thinking about, well, what coffees or what teas you're having, your chocolate. So I suppose even trying to calculate the amount that you would be safe and without any adverse effects is tricky. You could have a look at if there was energy drinks being consumed. I've got another slide to show you about the amount of sugar and caffeine in them. If you were just calculating them alone, how many you've had, it would probably be quite an eye-opener with regards to just the energy drinks. If you know anything about caffeine, if you have taken caffeine, it's what's got called a half-life. So it comes into your body and it can be anywhere 3 to 7 hours before that starts to kind of come out and stop impacting on you. So, you can be drinking something I know that if I drink something at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm still going to be pretty alert at 10 o'clock at night, sort of 6 hours later. Also with caffeine, we mentioned it's a stimulant drug. And with any stimulant drug, there can be a crash. So you get your super highs, and then you would actually get your lows, your crashes. And I suppose that is what kind of, when you're on those lows, your sugar will have spiked, but you're more likely to kind of make unhealthier choices. You could end up being, taking more caffeine to try and bring you back up again. You could end up like getting the sugar cravings and things like that, and it really doesn't help with your food choices. Caffeine you can build up a tolerance to that as well. Like any drug, your body can get used to it. And when your body gets used to it, you can build up a cycle of dependence. I don't really want to call it an addiction, but it is just becoming reliant on that. So that is something to watch out for. Right. Okay, this slide here is just a few examples. We had some of them earlier, but hopefully you can see them. I think that some of the shocking ones are the sugar for me. You know, when you look at things like Rockstar, there, a 500 ml can and having 17 teaspoons of sugar, it is probably about the equivalent of 2 cups of strong coffee. But 17 teaspoons of sugar is pretty crazy when you think about, you know, the adult recommended daily dose of sugar is no more than 7 teaspoons. And that is one can there, 17 teaspoons. If you go through them, they're not too different. I suppose your Red Bull, you've got your different size cans now. It used to be your, I think it was your 250 ml, or was it 200 ml was the original small can, and they've started to kind of grow now as well in size. So they will differ. The smallest can is 1 cup of coffee and 7 teaspoons of sugar if you're having the sugared version of that particular energy drink. So quite an eye opener. And when you think about the impact of sugar on the body, particularly in young people, um, I know that in Grampian that the highest reason for young people going into hospital and getting general anesthetics is actually for removal of teeth for rotten teeth. So there's a big sort of issue with sugar in general across young people and what they're choosing to drink as well as what they're choosing to eat. So why do people drink energy drinks? So low energy, tiredness, kind of one of the big reasons. We know that students are kind of, or our pupils look to for that for them to help to study, which is kind of counterintuitive because caffeine, obviously, if you're drinking it later in the afternoon or at night time, we mentioned there about the half-life, it's really not good for sleep hygiene. Sleep is the best thing you can do for your health, for your memory, for retention. And if you're not getting a decent night's sleep when you've put in a hard day's or night's study, then the process of, you know, shifting all that learning from your short-term memory to your long-term memory is impeded, and it's just counterintuitive. We've already mentioned there that you know, people will use energy drinks an hour before, or an energy drink an hour before they are due to perform, whether it's going for a gym session or, you know, a run. Um, I'm not saying it's good for them to do that, but it seems to be a kind of habit that's maybe there's a bit of a question sometimes on whether they use things like pre-workout, which is also a caffeine type substance, or using an energy drink to help with also the hydration aspect. We've also got things like clever platforms like YouTube and influencers that sit on that who seem to kind of be very relatable to young people. I mentioned before there that we had the Prime trend. I know my own grandchildren went nuts over it, and that's all they wanted in their stockings, but Granny did not do that. And there's a lot of kind of, I think, misinformation with Prime. They were very clever in their marketing, and I think they were making people or parents even think that they were healthier options, you know, that they were actually healthy hydration juices, and they weren't. I think they were higher in caffeine, but they were also higher in sugars, which we already talked about that. And I guess marketing overall, you know, you can't really go anywhere looking at sports. I'm a motorsports supporter, and Monster Red Bull is all over your sports. I'm sure it's in your kind of football and that as well. Um, so these are all the sort of things that influence people using energy drinks. Back to young people as well. I remember doing some work a few years back with young people, asking them about energy drinks, and some of them were even talking about they like that feeling of the buzz that caffeine gives you. They like to feel, I think they used the word hyper. So there's kind of questions in why people actually, that's early signs of actually wanting to feel different. It's that psychoactiveness of caffeine, which people might say, oh, but no, it's not a drug like that. It is, when you are having your body affected and your brain affected, where to make you feel hyper, it is a psychoactive substance. Okay, doke. So is there a problem? We know that with young people who are particularly living in more of the deprived areas where there's maybe challenges with poverty, with inequalities, the Obesity Action Scotland report has kind of highlighted that there is more energy drink use in those areas. And I know from that work that we did a few years ago, and I think it was Northfield that actually went as far as banning energy drinks in the school because they were having young people come in. But what they were finding was, it's that energy, it's that lack of energy, it's that lack of maybe sleep routine. It's maybe that the young people themselves had not had a proper dinner the night before and hadn't had breakfast, so had so little energy. Their options were to give them that big boost was to use up energy drinks, and that can all be linked to kind of poverty, the poverty agenda. So that's kind of one of the kind of areas of concern. And the next slide we're talking about is there's a bigger picture thing when it comes to weight, when it comes to food, when it comes to partnerships around trying to reduce all of that. We know that, I mean, not just children, but if you're consuming energy drinks, it is a public health concern. It has been associated with headaches. It does create fatigue because of those crashes. We've already talked about things like tooth decay, and unfortunately, things like type 2 diabetes and further addiction. There's more and more research coming out that I don't want to call it a gateway drug, but it is one of these things that can perpetuate and go into that risk-taking behavior. There's links to the energy drinks and alcohol, for example, whether it be things like the alcohol drinks that was mentioned before, or whether it's people mixing whatever they can find with energy drinks. The social and emotional concerns, there are behavioral problems that come with energy drinks. We know about the hyperactivity that can happen when you're taking energy drinks. It can bring on levels of anxiousness or feeling anxiety. What also perpetuates that is the risk of that sleeplessness and getting into those poor sleep hygiene patterns and not having routines and suffering from insomnia. That will all perpetuate in somebody, which will have implications on a young person's mental health. And it will also, with that mental health, create that extra level of cortisol in their body, which is the human stress hormone, which has all sorts of implications on the body. We know that there's ongoing mental health problems with young people, and you might be able to kind of think about, how people, we know that there's young people not wanting to go into schools. We know that there's young people that are really struggling with things like panic attacks because they just do not know what their future's holding, and it's almost like a bit of a coping strategy coming into using these energy drinks because they're stressed, and it's that cyclical behavior. Again, I just mentioned there as well about the links to risk-taking behavior and alcohol and drug use. Okay, so I'm going to have Nikki come in on this a little bit. I have a public health colleague who's been working with Nikki on a whole system approach to healthy weight. This is only a tiny little part of it. When you're thinking about energy drinks, there's a much bigger picture out there. So I guess, Nikki, do you want to kind of have a talk about what you've been doing with that? You're on mute.
This rookie mistake. The slide that you're showing is blank. Is the boxes are blank? Are they showing as filled in at your end?
Oh, I don't know what's doing there because it's come up on mine. The boxes are blank.
Yeah.
Oh, has
Ah,
that come up?
when you click on them, that's
Oh,
brilliant. Thank you
oh,
so much. That's
oh.
super.
Here we go.
That's
Lesson
great.
learned.
Thank you. Yes. So the whole system approach to healthy weight. You may or may not have heard of an initiative that's currently ongoing in Aberdeen. It was launched in August last year, and it's called Healthy Weight Aberdeen. And essentially, this is a multi organisation approach. So it's NHS Grampian, Aberdeen City Council, the Health and Social Care Partnership, several charities across the city, and colleagues from all over coming together to look at this joined up approach to how we're going to tackle the rising levels of obesity. So it is a public health priority for Scotland. We are looking at, I think it's 5 point, yeah, it's got it there, 5.9 billion cost to the NHS by 2030 if we do nothing about it. You can also see some of the stats there are talking about 1 in 5 of our primary one children, so you will know they get weighed in primary one. And at that point in time, they're identifying at least 1 in 5 are at risk of overweight or obesity at that point in time. Currently, that doesn't change. That doesn't get better the older they are. So with everything that we do, and if you attend a primary school or a secondary school in Aberdeen, there's a wealth of opportunities to get involved with sport and to engage with healthy eating programs and things like that. Whatever we're doing currently now isn't working. So we have to do something to change what we call the whole system. And that means we're going to be looking at the planning within the city. It means we're going to be looking at the advertising. It means we're going to be looking at what's happening with school meals. We're going to be looking at active travel across the city. So these large approaches, because what we're discovering is that yes, sometimes it does come down to individual choice, but sometimes there are a range of environmental factors that even if you wanted to try and be healthier, even if you wanted to make those healthy choices, the environment might not be making it particularly easy for you. So, for example, I know if I don't want to cook and I drive from Marshall College to my home, my takeaway options are all junk food takeaways. There isn't an option for me to get something healthier unless I want to go into a supermarket and get something that I'm going to cook. So, what's being made really easy for me is to access fast food. So we're thinking, okay, so maybe we need to look at things like that to change. Now, the reason why we decided to talk about it here is because obviously with energy drinks, just look at the levels of sugar that we're looking at. So they are also contributing to this, to the rising levels of obesity. So we've something we've really got to tackle here. And what I would say to you is we are looking for members of the public to be part of a stakeholder group in that. So when I send you the link to this, I will sort of say if you want to know a little bit more about Healthy Weight Aberdeen, please do get in touch. But yeah, that's where we are. Some really scary statistics there, including the fact that you're twice as likely to suffer from obesity. You were talking Rachel there about it being more prevalent in some of our more deprived areas in Aberdeen, and obesity is the same. And often it's got to do with the fact that it's very expensive to buy healthy food. It's very expensive to buy fresh vegetables. It's very expensive to cook from scratch. It doesn't have to be, but it can be, and it can be perceived that way. So we need to look at that as well. Thanks. Rachel, have we got the stats for the survey as well from the students? Is that coming up as well?
This one
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So, again, if you're a parent in an Aberdeen City School, you will know that we survey the children just before Christmas about all sorts of things to do with their health. It's an anonymous survey, so they're very honest with this. And you can see there that we looked at the thousands of children that we surveyed. So we get about 9,000 responses in total. So you can see there that we have got 670 of our students are saying that they are taking energy drinks at least once a day. Now, if I let you know that those stats cover from primary 5 up to S6. So I will be able to tell how many of our primary school students, are within that. But that's moving up until the thousands by the time we're talking to once a week or more. So if we lump that all together, we're looking at about at least 4,000 children who are drinking energy drinks between the ages of 10 and 18, at least once a week, or more.
And
So
that's not indicating the size of tin that they're drinking
no,
either.
it just says what
So
that they're
yeah.
drinking. They're just choosing to tell us that they drink it. And so we don't know the children. It's completely anonymous, but it gives us an idea of what we're having to tackle in the city.
Uh-huh.
So thanks,
And
Rachel.
no, thank you. And just kind of, it was something that when you were talking there about that whole system approach as well, I suppose the sort of challenges that we are going to see is things like, if children are going in for, say they're getting meal deals out of their nearest Sainsbury's or something, that's maybe what they're like for going to the nearest supermarkets. Some of these meal deals, I'm a natural curious person, I think, because of my background. And I went in and had a look at a meal deal once in Sainsbury's, and you could get a tin of Red Bull as part of that meal deal, but you also had a choice of three sizes of tin. So you had your half litre, your 250, I think it is, or your 300, and then the smallest one. You could pick any one of those to have as part of your meal deal, and it wasn't any more expensive. So it would only make sense to pick really the 500 ml tin to get your money's worth, I suppose. So those are the sort of things that we're also fighting against. If young people are choosing that. I also spoke to the young person that was behind the counter serving me, and he says, "Oh, this is my third one today." So yeah, so quite a bit to kind of try and sort of educate and get people a little bit more familiar with actually caffeine and that the energy element, that caffeine and the sugar we really need to be getting it a little bit more on the agenda across the board in communities. It's not just the parents, here it is a much bigger picture situation. So, even getting it in with I would say the substance use, how difficult that can be, Nikki, when it comes to the sort of even the nicotine side of things. But it's that bigger picture, and I think a holistic picture as well on things that actually change the way your body works. I think that's where we need to kind of be getting better at. So last slide, I think it is. I'm on last slide, nearly there. So what can you do as parents, carers, or guardians? So I guess, I mean, you're doing the right thing here, just having a little bit and learning about things and being able to advocate where you can. It's not always easy, but there are people out there that want to listen to you and are happy to help. So, um, even having a chat with your schools or, you know, finding out what their policies are about energy drinks, helping raise awareness if you're part of a parents' council or things like that. Get it on the agenda. Ask for the information. Um, Modeling healthier behavior. I've just been doing a whole heap of work with early years and modeling. I think parents forget how much children actually do look up to them and the sort of behaviors that you have, they look up to you. So, even if you try and if you're into energy drinks yourself, try and just not make it as visible or choose alternative drinks, encourage drinking water where you can, because that's the best thing for hydration. I know that if you are 2% dehydrated, your brain functions 20% less effectively. And water's the best thing for that. Okay. Try and serve it at meal times as well, and that all helps with the kind of digestion. That helps, it's always one of those messages, meal times and water. It helps with your hunger, satisfying your hunger. Just try and keep open communication. It's not easy when they get a little bit older, but I guess the earlier to start with that, the better. And just set limits around what your children are kind of, what their expectations are, and try and kind of introduce those healthy alternatives. And what you want to do is just look, again, it's that holistic approach. It's not just picking on energy drinks, it's just trying to look at your life in general. It's not easy. We all live busy lives, but I suppose it's little changes here and there that can actually help. Sleep routines are probably one of the biggest things that I would imagine parents can struggle with. you know, you've not if you've not got children that are using things like energy drinks, you've got ones that are on their phones all the time, you've got ones that are gaming. You know, so trying to kind of really promote those kind of routines and be and kind of, you know, just look at your family's kind of overall health. Because like I said, your sleep routine, that is the best thing you can actually do for your health. That's where it's best for your mental health. It's good for weight, believe it or not. You know, if you haven't got a good sleep pattern, it can actually impact on your weight and your circadian rhythms. So it's amazing the benefits that you probably don't appreciate with good sleep. Right, that information there is just a few extra links to some evidence and information. So I take it, will people be able to get this via the YouTube, or can they
Yeah,
click
but
live on it? I'm just kind of
yeah,
wondering for
so
that.
if not, Rachel, if you send them to me when I write to everybody, then I will be able to send them the links.
Cool, cool. And I was just gonna have another plug for your Stronger Family series. I know that you've done a Stronger Family series on the importance of sleep and the teenage brain, and I think it
Mhm.
all kind of links in really well, you know, thinking about that kind of holistic and your young person going forward. It's not easy growing up in today's world. So I'm definitely not demonizing young people with about energy drinks, but I think, you know, having a look at that bigger picture around young people and the kind of challenges that they might have. Um, and just how you approach them, I suppose, with you know, trying to kind of look at the way you can kind of implement healthier options for them. Um, I'm trying to get this. That's me. Thank you. And I will try and answer some questions, but like I said before, I'm not a specialist. But if you have any that I can't answer, what I can do is take a note and I'll go and find out and we can get the information to you.